It's so sad that nobody ever actually did work in the White House.
Well, welcome everybody.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here for this special evening Master's Tea without the tea. I want to thank a particular group who have been instrumental in making this happen. That's the West Wing Weekly. Due to their dedication, two of their members are going to come up and give the formal introduction. So Charlotte and Aziza.
Hi everybody. So West Wing Weekly is delighted to welcome Bradley Whitford, Emmy-award-winning film and television actor, to Yale. Whitford is celebrated for his work on The West Wing, as you all know, for which he won that Emmy and was nominated for 2 more, in addition to 3 Golden Globe nominations. On The West Wing, Whitford played Josh Lyman, the absolutely brilliant and absolutely arrogant Deputy White House Chief of Staff.
Whitford has also starred in shows such as The Good Guys and The Mentalist, in addition to films such as Billy Madison, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. It's a great movie. The Cabin in the Woods and Saving Mr. Banks. Whitford is a native of Madison, Wisconsin, and he graduated from Wesleyan University, where he's a member of the Board of Trustees and the Juilliard School. So please let's welcome Bradley Whitford.
Even though this is not a typical Master's Tea, we are going to follow a typical protocol and give our special guest an opportunity to sort of reflect on matters of life and vocation. Deeply, profoundly. As you sit before this audience of college students and you think back to your own days at Wesleyan and years forward, what are some of the things that come to mind for you?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the it is really shocking to me that the sort of affection for West Wing in the age of binge watching. I was saying earlier, you know, when we started the show, I don't think there may have been collections that you could buy, but we thought it would show once and then there would be a rerun and that would be it. And I was saying that if I'd known it was going to be watched so carefully, I would have worked a lot harder. You know, this show was an amazing thing, obviously, in my life, because it was the kind of creative experience that you realize very quickly if you pursue an acting career or a storytelling career. It's the kind of situation that comes together that you should never expect. Because you'll probably be disappointed, and it was.
Love you, Eric Gordon.
Just want to talk about business ethics. But it was beyond my wildest expectations creatively to have this group of actors, to have a guy who just a viciously talented guy like Aaron, to have that kind of guy writing for you, pursuing a creative career, it always feels like you're swimming upstream, and then it was like, whoa, you know, surfing. This is different. And for it to be about something that I had always thought would be a great arena for a television show, and that had always been sort of my personal obsession. And then to be doing it during a time of, if there's any such thing as not having a time, but felt like a particular time of political urgency and changing. Yeah, it was beyond what I had come to expect very quickly.
If the show were being done today, how do you think it would be done differently?
Well, there's we wouldn't have those stupid beepers. You know, I think there could be a really bright. I read the paper every day and think that there are amazing stories to be told. It's interesting. You look at the template of that. Basically, what that show is it's a very old kind of storytelling. It's what's going on in the castle, you know? What's the king really like? And it is a backstage story. It's interesting. It's interesting to me. I think it's actually, and I did not have these kind of pretentious hopes for the show. The last thing we thought was that the show would be taken remotely seriously. And it was very interesting because early on, you know, that we could do a show on the decennial census and get both bullet points, you know, across for head counts and for computer modeling, and 20 million people would watch it. Because Rob Lowe got late. It was weird because we started getting one of the first times we were shooting in Washington. There was this line of people standing there, and I thought they wanted autographs, and they were lobbyists giving me, you know, they wanted to do a thing on the tax code, or they wanted to do something about, you know, land use. This is creepy. So the show had this kind of odd legitimacy about it. I think it's, in retrospect, healthy to have a show like that because all we get now is the publicity. You know, we don't even have, you know, we conduct our public discourse on the Idiot Box, I say, with love and gratitude. But it's the discussions we see about real political issues are basically it's kind of pretentious professional wrestling publicity battles. You have a predictable extremist here, a predictable extremist there, and then you have the guy at the end going, well, you know, we'll say, which I think is really unhealthy, actually. And I think it's very interesting the opportunity that fiction has to be more truthful than the simple kind of documentary of what we watch going on with political discourse in this country. I remember, this is a very simple thing, but I remember a Shakespeare teacher of mine at Juilliard, you know, said, was talking about Shakespeare's capacity to be more truthful than a documentarian, and was saying, if you have an old man staring at a fireplace, lost, that's not the truth of him. The truth of him is what Shakespeare would put into his mind and bring out. And I think to show politicians actually not sure about the policy they're going to present, and to show politicians wrestling with the consequences of it, rather than the kind of sort of idiot peacock displays that we receive as constituents. In retrospect, I think that was kind of valuable. Although that's, we were just, as Aaron would say, trying to keep people's attention for an hour.
We just got done having dinner together, and toward the end of the meal, we had a conversation about creative collaboration. And you mentioned your ongoing creative collaboration with Aaron. One other thing that I wanted to ask you about, we're going to be opening up the mics for questions from you.
Okay, none from the
None of them.
It's the one stipulation.
I know that we're going to be having a lot of questions about West Wing. Actually, we have some other groupies here. Groupies of Joss Whedon and a whole series of showings of Fireflies last year, and then we collaborated
On Cabin in the Woods.
So I'm wondering if another office environment.
Yes.
How many of you have seen Cabin in the Woods? So I'm wondering if you
I
could.
dug deep.
The question I want to ask is what it's like to be eaten by a merman. Is it like fish or chicken?
It's, I think I was the chicken.
But in terms of creative collaboration, I mean, what sort of different environments are those? Comparing it.
Well, Aaron was I met Aaron. He had just, A Few Good Men was up on Broadway. Oh, you want to know how to get on West Wing? Here's how you do it. You play the idiot frat guy in Revenge of the Nerds Part 2. Nerds in Paradise. And you meet Tim Busfield. Who played what's his name with the violin and the glasses? Yeah, he played Danny. No, but I'm talking about Revenge of the Nerds. Anyway, I met him. He ended up replacing Tom Hulse in A Few Good Men. And he mentioned to Aaron, he said, I think this guy kind of talks the way you write. And so I auditioned, and I got to be, what was his name, Hale, the prosecutor. And I understudied Kathy, who was the lead. And then they were about to do what they usually do on Broadway, which is bring in, and I say this with no disrespect to me, a fading television star to replace. But Aaron really went out on a limb, and I got to be the lead in A Few Good Men on Broadway, which was an unbelievably fun experience. My dressing room was bigger than my apartment. That was an amazing experience. That's how I kind of met him. And then he asked me to do sports night for complicated reasons I couldn't. Thank God, because if I had, I wouldn't have been able to do West Wing. He told me that he was writing, he did American President, and he tells the story that he was having a lunch with John Wells and didn't realize that he was supposed to pitch him something. And John Wells, who was our executive producer, produced ER, said, so, tell me your idea. And he was like, he had 400 pages of research on the White House, and he said, how about a White House show? And that's what started. They didn't want to do it. They were scared. First of all, everybody hates politicians. Nobody wants to see a political show. To which I would always say, everybody hates lawyers. There are some law shows. Maybe that's not... and then Monica Lewinsky happened, and Democrats, it'll seem... So they postponed it. I can tell you the auditioning story for that. Ugh, I so hate auditions. We're doing saving Mr. Banks publicity, and Tom Hanks and Emma's talking about, oh, I love to audition. It's a chance to inhabit it. I love it. I'm like, it's because you're a movie star. It's not fun when you're not deigning to come in. And Aaron had said he had written this thing for me, so I just thought it was unbelievable. I just thought, Jesus. And we all thought, is it never going to go? I mean, that's what, at that point in network TV, there was no place to do interesting things, so if it was at all interesting, it was not going to go. And that went through the pilot. It was, this is great, but it's never going to go. So I had to work on this thing. So I know that Aaron's pretty precise about words, and I know that I have a big advantage here because I know that the way to get his stuff down is you can't just memorize it because, and you'll see this with actors, because they are trying, you can feel them, climbing to the next word. You have to get to the place where it's beyond second nature. And people say, how do you memorize? And it's chimp work. It's throwing spaghetti at the wall. There are some tricks to it. But basically, you got to do it a lot. And I was up in the hills of California, just hours and hours and hours. I would pretend, it's a mind-boggling acting exercise. I would pretend I was acting badly and try to do it well. And I went in and I had what I thought was the best audition of my life. And it's Aaron and Tommy Schlamme. His name is Tommy Schlamme. You know Tommy? I love Tommy. Tommy is Aaron's partner, and apparently Tommy's mom, it never occurred to her that if your last name is Schlamme and you call your kid Thomas, then you're going to become Tommy Schlamme. And Aaron calls me, he's like, oh man, you hit it out of the park, you made me, And then Tommy didn't think I was right. And then Warner Brothers didn't think I was right. I had to go back in. Aaron got a thing that just felt pathetic, where I went back in and I read with an actress, and they said, you're just reading with her. And I thought it was about her, so I'm like, they're taping it, and I'm, kind of getting out of the shot, and this girl's giving this audition. I'm thinking, oh, sweetheart, you're not that good. I was thinking, I really felt badly for her. And I get home, and my agent calls, and they say, it's not looking good for Brad. They felt like she blew him out of the room. And I'm like, I thought she was... So I was going out. I was going out of my mind. And Aaron still wanted me. And I got a phone call. I was in Santa Monica. I got a phone call. He said, "You're in it. You're Sam." And I gas station in Santa Monica, and I was like, Aaron, I'm only going to play this card once in my life because God knows I need this job. But that's not me. I'm not the guy with the hooker. I'm the guy going after the Christian right. So then it turned out okay. But no, listen to this. This is why let me get you ready for the real world, where you will often think you should get respect when you don't. The show goes on after the 4th year. Aaron and Tommy leave. I see them all the time. Tommy has become really, truly one of my best friends. I've had a really close friend. I hang out with his family, everything. And it's the 7th year of West Wing, and Aaron's writing a show, and everybody knows that, you know, Aaron's writing a show, and people are going, have you read it? It's unbelievable. And I don't want to, I'm like, I needed to shake my Etch-a-Sketch. You know, it was 7 years of that. I was really kind of wiped out, and I didn't want to put Aaron in the position of, everybody was asking for auditions, so I avoided reading it. So he calls me finally, and he goes, "Did you read it? Have you read my script?" And I said, "No." He said, "I really think we've been doing auditions. I really think it's you. So please read it." So I read it, and it's like his writing is, the best writing in television, movies, and I'm thinking, this is idiotic. This is what you do. You're a horse at a racetrack, and that's what you do. So why are you not going to do it when the best writer is asking you to do it? I have a painful discussion with my family, and we decide, yes, I'm going to do it. I call Aaron. I call my manager. I say, tell him yes, I'm going to do it. And I get a call back, and Tommy is refusing to sign off on it unless I audition. And he was serious. And I called Tommy, and I said, yeah, I'll audition, in a pilgrim outfit, scuba gear, but I'm not going to seriously audition for you. And he just wanted to see it. But just know that if you have what seems like, the luckiest, most successful experience of your life, it may not matter to anybody.
I suppose some of you might want to ask some questions. So we have 2 mics set up here. We have folks to guide you to the mics. First question here.
Hi. What was your favorite scene that you did in this week?
Oh, God. We're waking up hungover and fishing waders. Really? By the way, one of my proudest prop moments in my life, the coffee. They didn't know I was going to do that. I was just, you've seen it probably. Just cold coffee going down. And that's one of my favorite lines and things. I'm expecting a guy named Joey to show up, and a deaf woman going, no offense, obviously. Just know that I do that to Marley Matlin. But she's doing something I don't understand, and the line is, what in God's name is happening? Another favorite moment, I loved, there was something, I'm doing something on a hill, and my dad has sent me some new shoes, and I'm walking along, and I just fall. Which I thought was great.
Good questions.
What in God's name is
Hi, I was wondering what...
Joe? An apparition is so.
I've heard that the actress who plays Donna had said that she sensed like the chemistry from the beginning, and that sort of the relationship may have come out of that. Did you feel chemistry with that?
Donna?
Yeah. In the later seasons, or was that planned already?
No, I was talking about this. It's one of the things that people don't understand about what makes Aaron's writing so wonderful is that because he was not planned ahead, she was just like a day player. She could have just been there for one day. And I remember, we did like one take, and I went over to the monitor and I was like, Aaron felt the same way, and then it was something he picked up on. I agreed to a certain extent that there's oddly in drama there's nothing so boring as consummation. You have to avoid it. So I understood that a lot of other things had to go on, but by like year 6, I'm like, how emotionally constipated is Josh? Lost, he's got a hollow life, loves women, and it's like a starving person looking at a Thanksgiving dinner. That's a beautiful metaphor. But yeah, and that was one of the, if you're a showrunner, honestly, it's anything creative. Part of what you got to be really. Part of what's interesting to me about acting is you got to be really, really ready, so that you can just be innocent to the moment, and that's what you're aiming for. And they're often two different skills. But as a showrunner, you're steering this big ship, but you gotta be awake enough to go, ooh, that's Donna, and not go, how'd that scene go, and Aaron's Aaron kind of falls in love with he's very warm and grateful with his actors, and I think he kind of falls in love with them, and that helps him understand. He's hoping to be able to take you to all the stuff that you can do. He picked up immediately on. My roommate in college was Richard Schiff's brother, so I knew Richard when he was a dyspeptic, angry 19-year-old. And Aaron picked up on that right away. I love Richard. But my joke about Richard, here's my joke, is Richard couldn't be here, he's doing a one-man show. The only problem is he hates the cast.
When you were first starting out as an actor, did you have a timeline for where you wanted to be in your career? Before you stopped wanting to be a starving artist?
It's a really, it's a really interesting and honestly painful question, because I have people in my family who are struggling artists. I went to Juilliard for 4 years after college, we called it med school with guaranteed unemployment, or graduate Montessori school. It's great to be like 25 and now in any other culture you'd have like grandchildren and a goat and you're pretending to hold a cup. You know, out of my class there, 25 started, 19 graduated, 3 of us make a living, and they're all men. Because the business out there is, I hope it's changing, it's much tougher for actresses because they get pigeonholed and there's a stupid aesthetic that can be ruined. I think that may be changing. I have dear friends. I have a guy who could have produced, line-produced, logistically produced West Wing better than the people who did it, and he is a stand-in in a one-bedroom apartment, you know, and he's in his 50s, and it's corrosive and it hurts. I don't know what the answer is. I was lucky. I got out and there was nothing going. I mean, I couldn't get it but it was just for like 4 months. I mean, but I was like serving. I was catering in corporate dining rooms, and it was this tobacco company. This is 1985, and I had to arrange these, you know, after 8 years of college, I'm arranging bouquets of cigarette packs, and these guys are smoking and talking about how, hey, there's a big emerging, you know, market in Chinese girls, so let's get, you know, I'm like, oh, this job, like in Himmler's den. And I couldn't get a job, and then I got this amazing job, which was an off-Broadway play, Curse of the Starving Class, Sam Shepard play, with Kathy Bates, and that, I don't know how long I would have been able to hold on. And listen, I have my ex-wife who went to Yale School of Drama. Didn't cause the divorce. We're very close, and we feel. I feel very strongly about premature. I think I feel this way, but I think I feel it vehemently. Premature kind of logistical art training. For instance, I don't think if you're your age, you should be in a film program where they're teaching you how to make a movie. Because I can teach you how to make a movie in a month. And in 2 years, the technology is going to be completely different. We need interesting people to create interesting musicians and interesting actors and interesting writers, and you know, sort of focusing too early, it concerns me. And if you're an actor, a musician, or a writer, you know, keep yourself in a place like this. That is an incredible opportunity to learn about a lot of things before you kind of prematurely specialize. Now, I just said that. My daughter is, she's about to be 17, and she is an obsessed, okay, ballerina. makes me so, I mean, nothing makes me happier because I see what her mom, you know, this flowing, creative abandon in her face, and she gets a lot of support, and people, you know, want to do it, but it's really weird. I'm like, you know, you gotta do that now. And I was at Juilliard during what I refer to as the bulimia renaissance, which was, I mean, ballerina, the ballet there was, it was, you know, they stopped smoking to throw up. You know, I mean, it was not a healthy thing at all. That's changed a bit, but you know, I'm conflicted about it. I have stories of people who held on, you know, for a long time, and it paid off. I have a member of my family who it's been destructive to hand your self-esteem on a platter to show business is not a good idea at any point. And what's confusing about acting is the activity. There's nothing more wonderful than the activity, the combination. I fell in love with acting, like, it hit me that it was the only integrated thing I'd ever done. When I was reading, my body was dead. When I was you know, doing sports, my heart and my brain were dead. It was like, wow, I need nothing better for you, developmentally or spiritually, than getting the chance to act. The business is horrific. There was a guy, I went to Wesleyan, and there was this guy, I didn't really know him at Wesleyan, but you know, I recognized him, and I get to New York. He worked at the same restaurant, Panero's, as I did, and he comes in, he's been out for a couple of years, and he comes in, he's really depressed, because he's had this conversation with his father, who was not a jerk, which made it worse. His father called him and said, his father was this big lawyer, he said, you want to take the law boards? And Chris was like, no, I don't think I want to be a lawyer. He said, well, you're an amazing student. I mean, do you want to do any? No, I don't think I want to go to grad school. And he goes, well, I know you don't want to be a waiter. What do you want to do? And he said, you're not going to want to hear this. And he goes, just, I love you. Tell me, what do you want to do? And he goes, well, you know, I love performing, but you know, I'm not really an actor. And, I love playing the drums, but I'm not a musician. I'm really interested in art, but you know, I'm not a painter. So his dad's like, so what do you want to do? And he says the words that no parent should ever hear. I want to be a performance artist. And there's this silence, and his dad was like, well, I love you, I just wanted to check in, you know. But the silence was just, especially from someone who loves you, it was horrible. So he created Blue Man Group. And I saw him recently, and I was like, well, thank God you didn't say, oh, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to paint myself blue, share banana paste out of it. You know, so, you know, I don't know the answer to that. There are many people who live very painful lives. Yeah. Because my stupid football coach was champions adjust. You know, if it's not working, adjust. But I do see people relentlessly hurting themselves emotionally. It's tough. I'm boring myself. Look at that.
Hi.
Your needs, my self-esteem.
Okay. All right, so I've read that your character is based on Rahm Emanuel, and I've also read that Santos is based on Obama, but it's weird because Rahm Emanuel became chief of staff a long time after you played deputy chief of staff on TV, and Obama became president a long time after Santos was president on TV. So it's like a weird example of life reflecting art and art reflecting life. So how do you explain that weird situation? Can you see the future?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. No, I'll tell you, people say Rahm Emanuel, who is really a character. I have a Rahm Emanuel joke. Excuse me, how do you ask Rahm Emanuel what time it is?
I don't know.
Excuse me, Rahm, do you know what time it is, or should I just go fuck myself? Part of it was definitely based on Rahm. The subtle sending of a dead fish to a congressman who doesn't vote the way you want to vote. That kind of nuanced political. That happened to him, and Rahm, he lost his office. You know, he was working out in the hallway. There was one part of Rahm that I really wanted to do, which is oddly, given Rahm's wordplay and general attitude, Rahm is a ballet dancer. And I thought it would just be great if I danced to my day. No, I thought it'd be great if Josh went, you know, it'd just be odd to see him at the bar. But he was a mix of other things. The Santos thing honestly came from, because I was doing some writing then, and in the writer's room, they were just trying to create the best dramatic conflict. And they thought it would be interesting. Back then, I remember we used to refer to it as a Schwarzenegger Republican. It's fantastic. You know, we thought it would be the most interesting politically to have the Alan Alda character, a moderate Republican, running against someone who came out of nowhere and was almost too good to be true, and was not an establishment, you know, perhaps a recent family immigrated recently or something. So that was a surprise when Obama, you know, came out of nowhere. We knew of Obama then, but it was not reasonable back then to think that he would ever run. I told this the story at dinner that I got an opportunity, a jarringly quick, sudden opportunity to. I ended up writing 2 episodes, but the first one I wrote was when he announces, and I had to write it really, really fast. And I had to write one of the things they call it pipe that I had to put into my story was him announcing, and I had to do his speech when he announces. And I've never written a political speech, and wrote this thing. I did work with families of autistic kids, and the mothers of severely autistic kids would constantly say that one of the most upsetting things was when doctors would say to them, I don't want to give you false hope. It would infuriate them. And so I thought that idea was in my head just because of a recent thing I was at. And so I write this thing, and it's basically, and they didn't steal this, but it's basically a speech about hope and how there's, he's in front of a school and he's talking about hope is as necessary and immeasurable, to us as love. There was false science, but there will never be false hope. We need, and I thought it was like the corniest bullshit. It's like, oh my God. It's like, I'm for gravity. We're all at the mercy of it, And I showed it to a guy named Eli Addy, who's a speechwriter for Gore and Clinton. And he looked at it, and I said, this is like just trite, right? And he, like, hope? And he said, nah, they're all corny. He was like, no, that's good. That's good. But that always surprised me. But no, we were not trying to be, prescient. When we almost did an Aaron episode when the reporter, what's his name, Danny, the reporter was killed. Daniel Pearl. When Daniel Pearl was killed, Aaron had written an episode about where there was a scene where a woman was being told that her reporter who was held hostage was killed. And we almost pulled that shot. We didn't. Unfortunately, that is more common than it used to be. There's a tip jar. That was a weird thing because 9/11 happened and it wasn't honestly. It was so. Actually, it was Janelle. Janelle called me. Janelle woke me up. And told me to turn on the TV, and it was everybody was in shock. And Aaron, part of the problem, part of the way Aaron writes is he doesn't plan at all. It's terrifying thinking about it. He would write an episode. There would be no sense of planning where the season was going to go. So he's writing every episode, which is insane. No human being will ever again write. They won't ever write 22 episodes, 11 feature films in 9 months. No one will ever do it, and they shouldn't. Now you would do, a show like this. You'd do 10 episodes or something. But Aaron obviously doesn't write ahead, so we shut down. The world's gone mad, and then Aaron felt like announced that he was going to do this episode, which was going to acknowledge what had happened in the world, which I thought, and Tommy thought, and a lot of people thought it was a big mistake to, break the fiction wall. But I have to say, in retrospect, I love that he did it because he, there are lots of shows that, if they had the Twin Towers in the credits, they just computerized, got rid of them, they pretended it didn't happen. I actually thought it was a pretty, it was an honest, I have this television show, but this is the only thing on my mind. So ultimately, it was incredibly scary to do it because it was, our shooting was short. I remember that day, and this, usually on a sane show, you lock it, they edit it for a couple of weeks, they sweeten it, and a month later, it's on TV. I shot something that day that was on network TV that night. Like, there's a guy standing by the messenger, ready to put this little thing in to put into it. So it was very scary. As I said, we were worried about it, but I thought it was the right thing to do in that respect.
Yeah, so I want to talk about The West Wing. I actually never watched it, but what happened to the other guys? That was a great show.
Riverdance?
The other guys.
Irish thugs scream. You mean the good guys?
The Good Guys. That was the show. Yeah.
That show was a lot of fun. It was obviously a different character. A little different, but he was fun. I mean, he just every woman just loved him. I have a tricky. I have a good problem, and everybody who's on West Wing has this problem, which is everything you do after it feels like a labor of like, because that, and by the way, I couldn't take something that kind of suffocating and engaging right now because those shows are brutal time-wise. I mean, they're and worse for the crew, but people. Can I say a dirty word at Yale? I remember seeing Tommy Schlummy. I mean, it's not background. You made it there. And this is a real problem in Hollywood. It's a safety issue, and again, much more for the crew than for us, but very often you're 17, 18-hour days, which is insane. And that's part of the problem with doing a show that complicated. The 1 hour drama was set up to be a show that you have never heard of called Mannix. With something like stupid, simple, we'll shoot this and we'll shoot that, like a close-up and we're gone. You can shoot that really fast. But by the time, the Sopranos is better than any mob movie. We were as good as any political movie. So now we're making 11 movies in 9 months, which is insane. So the hours would be crazy. And I remember saying to Tommy, the invisible carnage of the unfucked wives. A good name for a band. situations like that is really wafting out into the future from the stages of Warner Brothers. What was the question? Something about Whitford. That show died.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I get sad sometimes.
So you mentioned that you dabbled in writing during West Wing. So I'm just wondering, I think you wrote some episodes after Aaron Sorkin left.
Yes.
So what was that process like, making that transition from actor to writer and kind of filling in Aaron Sorkin's shoes?
Well, you're not, you know, John Wells, who really heroically, I mean, when Aaron left, I mean, it was there had been rumblings about it. I actually think, I don't know if I've ever said this to Aaron, but I wouldn't care if he heard it. I think that Aaron, it's too much, 4 years. And I think that he was at the point where he needed to stop, but incapable of, for a lot of good reasons, saying, I'm going to stop. And so he kind of created the conditions where he had to stop. It's kind of like the bad way to break up with somebody. Just for you kids. John Wells runs an amazing. John Wells, by the way, is the unsung hero of West Wing, because John believes in collaboration in highly functional writing rooms, in creating order out of the chaos of making a show, and then Aaron walks in. And, you know, Aaron had to write every show, which initially you're like, and he was writing Sports Night that first year. That's insane. And even, you know, you think it's like an ego thing or something, but I realized it would be as if he came to me and said, Josh, it's really working great. We love it. You know, but this week we're going to have someone else play it. You know, that's the way Aaron felt. You know, he can't conventionally collaborate. That's just not the way it works. And John Wells, it goes against everything he believes. It goes against, my joke with Aaron is, and I've said this to him, great show about democracy, but you ran it like Kim Jong-il. You know, it's not a creative process that anybody really believes in, but it does exist. And John, I talked with John about it, and John realized, you know, you go with talent. You know, you go with talent, and this is what is dangerous about being talented. But he created a place where Aaron could do that. I mean, just financially alone, that you're resting this massive investment on a guy. You know, what if he, you know, trips? You know, we're not going to have an episode next week. It was really an incredible risk. When John Wells came in, the first year after, he will say, and I think we all felt, we were trying to do Aaron's show. And I think we got a lot better in the 6th and 7th year, because it was a very interesting writer's room, and we were able to do things that Aaron doesn't do in his writing. We were able to turn on each other. We were able to plan something like an election, which is not something that would happen under Aaron. So I felt, always here, well, the show wasn't what it was, after Aaron left. And I always think, that's one I wrote. But I do feel, I do feel like the show continued to get to, to interesting places, and it's certainly an arena that, it's very interesting too. I mean, you realize, I used to say, like, can you imagine if I went into the West Wing writer's room and I said, okay, I have an idea. The guy who was the leading Republican at the moment, who's running against the president, had a hunting camp called Niggerhead. It's beyond. Or if we had the Republicans, using the kind of, now you're going to get me started, science denial and relitigation of contraception, if we had done that, we wouldn't think of doing that. It would be making them too unreasonable. On our TV show. It's remarkable, or hey, let's have an election and let's call it for one guy, and then we'll say, wait, no, we'll call it for another guy. And the guy we call it for, his brother's governor, and then the Supreme Court comes in and says the guy who got less votes won,
How is Justice Mendoza doing tonight?
Still lost.
Is he still lost? That's right, we got lost. I never saw that show. Yeah, he was
Celestial Navigation?
Celestial Navigation. Oh, that show. That show with me, narrating it? Okay. Aaron comes up that season, he's like, I got a really good one for you. It's heavy, and I'm really sorry, I'm not going to be done. You start on Monday, but hopefully I'll have some stuff on Friday night. And the whop, this thing comes down, and I go out, and I'm like, in my driveway, going, God damn it! Because it's page after page of me describing what is going on, talking to a group of students. It's right, I'm on a stage. And I remember, this was before I knew any better, I remember Tommy Schlamy saying, don't worry, we know it's ridiculous, we'll get you a prompter. And I'm like, I'm not a weatherman. I'm an actor. I don't want to, what am I, some drunken soap actor? So I honestly think memorizing that in 2 days injured my brain.